Solving quadratic equations by completing the square. So when we talk about completing the square, we're talking about making a quadratic equation in the form of x plus or minus a number squared. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to look for a number that's going to make it a perfect square. How are we going to do that? Let's look at an example. So let's say we have x squared plus 6x plus 3 equals 0. The first thing we want to do is take the constant term to the other side. So we're going to minus 3 from both sides and get this. Now, we're looking for something to add to this equation to make a perfect square. But whatever we add to one side, we need to add to the other. The thing we need to add is half the coefficient of x. So it's half the coefficient of x, and then we square it. So let's do just that. So we're going to add in, well, the coefficient of x is 6, so we're going to take 6 divided by 2 and square it. And do the same thing over here. Now, I'm just going to rewrite that. So half of 6 is 3, but I'm going to leave it as 3 squared. And over here, I can just go ahead and square the 3 to give 9. It doesn't matter on that side, but it's important to leave it squared here to know how to factorize it. Because now we've actually developed a perfect square. Think about factorizing this monic quadratic. What two numbers do you need to multiply to 9 and get 6? Well, that's just positive 3 and positive 3. So we could write it like this, saying x plus 3, x plus 3, and minus 3 plus 9 is 6. But it'd be smarter to write it like this, x plus 3 all squared, because they're exactly the same. And that was the initial goal, remember, to write it as a perfect square, which we've now done. Because when you do that, we can now square root both sides. So the square and the square root cancel out and give us x plus 3. But we've just square rooted an unknown that was squared, so we have to introduce a plus or minus on the right-hand side. So we get plus or minus root 6. Now we can just subtract 3 from both sides. So we get minus 3 plus or minus root 6 as our two answers to this solution of this quadratic equation. X squared minus 10x plus 5 equals 0. So first step, let's take the constant to the other side. So minus 5 from both sides. Now we're looking to add something to both sides of the equation that's going to complete the square, make a perfect square. So we need half the coefficient of x, that's minus 10 divided by 2 squared, minus 10 divided by 2 squared. So we're going to get, so now we'll be able to factorize it with a perfect square, because we're going to get x. Now, everything inside the squared needs to go here. So this is minus 10 divided by 2, which gives us minus 5, all squared. So just keep in mind that if this is positive, this will be positive, and if this is negative, this will be negative. Then we're going to get, on this side, well, minus 10 divided by 2 gives us minus 5. Minus 5 squared is 25. Then 25 minus 5 is 20. So now we can go ahead and square root both sides, where the square and the square root will cancel out. So we get x minus 5 is what we're left with. We have to introduce a plus or minus. So we get plus or minus root 20. Now we can add 5 to both sides. So we get 5 plus or minus root 20. And we can actually simplify the surd of root 20. So we'll get 5 plus or minus root 4 times 5, Root 4 is just 2, so we get 2 root 5. And final answer, x equals 5 plus or minus 2 root 5.